We start in the Piazza del Duomo. It's the beating heart of Milan, anchored for centuries by the massive Gothic cathedral, the Duomo, which has always defined the city's religious and civic life. Directly across from that ancient center stands the Palazzo del Arengario. This structure frames the southern edge of the square, perfectly balancing the symmetry of the piazza alongside the famous Galleria on the opposite side. The palazzo was designed in the 1930s by a team including prominent architects Piero Portaluppi and Giovanni Muzio. They worked in a style known as stripped classicism, taking the monumental scale and grand arches of ancient Roman architecture and removing the ornate details to leave a disciplined, modern profile. To prevent this new, rigid geometry from clashing with the intricately carved cathedral next door, the architects clad the Arengario in the exact same creamy marble. They also integrated massive decorative reliefs by sculptor Arturo Martini along the eastern facade to illustrate key moments in Milanese history. By the early 2000s, this former political center was completely repurposed. Architects Italo Rota and Fabio Fornassari led a major renovation, hollowing out the interior and reimagining the entire space as the new Museo del Novecento, a public institution dedicated strictly to 20th century Italian art. This means a building originally designed to project national order and ancient Roman symmetry now serves as the permanent home for a collection defined by rebellion, chaos, and a desire to break traditional boundaries. The transition into that rebellious mindset begins the moment you enter. Visitors ascend via a grand, continuous spiraling ramp from the ground floor, an architectural choice that physically embodies the ideas of movement and progress that dominate the galleries above. That upward momentum leads directly into the focal point of the collection, the Futurism movement. And right at the center stands Umberto Boccioni's 1913 bronze sculpture, Unique Forms of Continuity in Space. Boccioni avoids a static pose, instead alternating convex and concave curves across the highly polished bronze surface. He shapes the figure into an aerodynamic profile that looks as though it is pushing through heavy resistance, suggesting a heroic progression toward the horizon. Notice that the figure is missing its arms, a detail Boccioni shares with an earlier masterpiece, Auguste Rodin's Walking Man. But where Rodin focused on dense muscular anatomy, Boccioni wanted his figure's anatomical details to melt into the environment, creating a constant spatial osmosis between the physical body and the air around it. The Futurists famously wrote manifestos demanding the destruction of all historical art. Yet, the forward-striding posture here draws a direct line to classical antiquity, specifically the ancient Greek victory of Samothrace. Critics at the time were quick to point out that Boccioni was leaning on the exact traditions he claimed to despise. But the true formal innovation happens at the bottom of the piece. Before Boccioni, sculptures almost always stood on a single, solid base. Here, the artist fractures that static foundation into two distinct, separate supports. This split base forces the eye to separate the physical stride from the figure's center of gravity. It transforms the work from a study of human anatomy into a study of pure mental momentum. As the collection progresses deeper into the century, that detachment takes new forms. Visitors walk through galleries dedicated to the evocative, melancholic portraits of post-war artists like Amedeo Modigliani, known for these highly stylized, elongated features. Eventually, the exhibition arrives at the Spatialism movement, led by Lucio Fontana. Fontana felt that painting on a flat canvas was an exhausted practice. To find new dimensions, he began physically slashing and puncturing his materials, abandoning the surface to explore the literal void behind it. This image shows one of Fontana's most ambitious post-war projects, a massive 150 square meter ceiling created in 1956 for the dining room of the Hotel del Golfo. He made these deep incisions, cuts, and slashes directly into the fresh, wet plaster. Decades later, when the hotel was being refurbished, this ceiling was nearly destroyed. Because Fontana's cuts penetrated the entire depth of the plaster, standard peeling methods wouldn't work. Instead, conservers used a technique called stacco a macello. They mapped a precise grid over the ceiling and cut the structure into 25 individual transportable panels, preserving the artist's original marks. This massive rescue operation highlights the museum's broader function. It actively intervenes to protect and revalorize site-specific architectural masterpieces that existed outside traditional gallery walls, bringing them into a space where they can survive. The physical journey through the building finally culminates on the top floor, at the panoramic terrace. It serves as an ultimate viewpoint, turning the surrounding city into the final piece of the exhibition. Looking out through the massive glass windows, the ornate marble spires of the Duomo are framed directly against the modern Milanese skyline. It completes the physical ascent from the ancient ground-level piazza up into the elevated space of contemporary thought, and the building communicates right back to the square. A massive 487-square-meter LED screen on the exterior facade broadcasts cultural events and news, projecting the museum's internal energy out into the daily rhythm of the streets below. The Museo del Novecento avoids acting as a silent vault for old masterpieces. Between the glass terrace and the glowing media wall, it achieves the exact osmosis that Boccioni was searching for. It's an environment where the visitor, a controversial palace, and a bustling city continuously engage with the radical visions of the 20th century.